Hi, Garrett. Welcome to Conscious Living. I'm Wendy Garrett. Hope you're having a good day wherever you are, whatever's going on. I hope it's all working well and in your favor, and whatever you are challenged with at this time will create new insight and awareness that helps you resolve some of those other issues that may not be so easy to deal with. It's amazing, the stuff that we're going through right now, in terms of all of the, I think, new ideas that are out, new science, new activities, new opportunities. We are being challenged to pretty much upgrade our way of dealing with the world. And that is, to me, I think, an exciting place to be. Yeah, there's always the drama, the negative, the things that are more of a dark part of our psyche and our nature and our reality. But what right now I think is calling to us is a way of being that challenges us to bring forth the best of us and to learn and express newer ways of engaging with our environment, whether it's mind, body, spirit, all across the board. Eva Herr, I've talked with her before, and I really enjoy the way she presents her stuff. And the things that she has put together in her latest book might give people who need that scientific validation a little more support in their beliefs. A lot of times people will have a new idea, new awareness, new insight, new philosophy, and then they take it out and they show it to their friends, and their friends go, "Oh, good grief, you're nuts." Where's the science? Okay, well, this is what she's tried to do. Put some people who have the science background and the education background together, who have their own not only opinions, but research that validates some of these new ways and new ideas and new thinking. Eva, hi there. Thanks for talking with me again.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks so much for having me. You're exactly right. That's what I was trying to do with this book. I was trying to, my background's in litigation. And so since the consciousness is my life, that's all I ever talk about. And so when I talk to my friends who are lawyers or judges or medical doctors, we've conditioned by science since we're in kindergarten or even before. And so they always say, that's nonsense. Show me the pudding. Show the proof's in the pudding. Show it to me. So I kind of said, you know what? I can do that. I can do that. So I scoured the internet. This thing took me over 10 years to do the research. I conducted over probably 50 interviews to pick out the ones that made the most sense, because I wasn't looking for somebody's opinion. I wanted to know the facts that they had to support what they had to say. So I didn't care what somebody thought, in this book anyway. So I sat down with a physicist friend of mine who is also enlightened and he died a couple of years ago, and we put together what we call 20 questions. The big questions, the $1 million question. What is the source? What is God? Is there God? And if so, what is the evidence for that? What is God? What is the scientific proof for God? Not what's in our hearts every day and what's conditioned by religion, but what does science think God is? What does science think God can do? What does science think that the role of God is in our lives? What is consciousness? What is that thing? What is mind? What's the difference between what we call big mind and little mind? The bigger mind of all there is, and our little mind that chatters every day to us and helps us do a job. What is, are we really separate individuals? Or are we really one with everything? Because we hear that all the time, and it makes a lot of sense to some people who, are on a spiritual path. That makes so much sense. But to these people that are so black and white, who I might add, I am one of those people. I'm so analytical, it's not even funny. I'm black and white, believe it or not. So, and, can intention really manipulate reality? Because we saw the movie What the Bleep, and we saw the movie The Secret, and people try these techniques that they see on these movies, and they don't work instantaneously, so they give up and they think that they don't work. So this book is actually presenting the absolute scientific evidence, reproducible, irrefutable scientific evidence of research that's gone on, experiments that have gone on worldwide that you can't dispute. It is the science that will be taught to our children in the next 10 years.
Okay, and that's huge. That's huge. That will be taught because there's a gap in between.
Yeah, well, there always is a gap when you're on the edge of a quantum leap. You know, there was a quantum leap between Newtonian physics and Einstein physics. You know, there was a quantum leap with Columbus and the people before him who said the world was flat. Mm-hmm. So there's always that big gray fuzzy area until somebody goes, hey, here it is. 2 plus 2 is 4, is it not? Well, here's the science. Here's the math. And my book doesn't have the math because I wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about if I were talking about numbers. So what I did do was talk to these, most of them are physicists, some of them are psychologists or PhDs and other things. Can't even think of the word now.
I've got a nuclear physicist person here. Let's just get into it real quick because just because I want to ask you some questions. And
okay, go ahead.
When's the book available?
It's going to print this week, more than likely. So it will be available for purchase probably in the last week or first week or so of September.
It's called Consciousness.
It's called Consciousness, Bridging the Gap Between Conventional Science and the New Science of Quantum Mechanics.
Okay. Now, what I liked was the part, because I'm just going to jump around here, the Pear Lab folks. These are the folks at Princeton University that do the research on what intention might create, or at least that's how I'm paraphrasing it. You'll do it better. But what I liked was the one little blurb in there that appealed to me, that a lot of people have experiences with lights going out around them. Mm-hmm. And I love the response. She said, okay, we've had hundreds, if not thousands of people tell us they have this experience. All right, we can't duplicate it. It has to be reproducible in a lab. So please stop sending us all your I make the lights go out notes. I thought, I'm sorry, but since my whole epiphany and my daily life revolves around this engagement with something that manipulates my nightlight and makes it go on and off.
Lucky you.
It was just that thing of, now I also know the thing that people, when they go near a street light, it'll turn on or it'll turn off. And the problem is they can't take that into the lab right at this point. But I just thought, okay, there's a reality check for everybody who has those really cool affirmations that you are not alone and something else is here accompanying you and trying to get your attention. You can't do that in the lab yet, okay? So it doesn't count.
And I want to add, this science that the people at Princeton, this is not just their graduate students doing this work. This is Bob John. He's the dean. He's retired now, or dean emeritus. He was the dean of the engineering department at Princeton. He's not just some scientist that's fooling around in a lab. He's somebody that has the credentials to back up what he says with this work.
Well, and then the other person who is
Brenda
the
Dunn.
manager? Yeah, because you have
like
two.
His arm. She's his arm. She did the interview for him, but what she says is what he has to say.
Well, and they've had some more PR recently because of the statistics that they had showing that there was a bump in the numbers, the random number generator before events like, for one, 9/11, saying that something happened at a subconscious level worldwide that shifted those numbers right before those events happened, and that there have been other big events that have had that same little anomaly, and that is what is showing them there's something underlying all of this, that we seem to have a premonition or a foreknowledge of these events. And what is that about? That's fascinating.
It's usually about 3 days, and the way they know this is they have these little things called random event generators planted all over the world. And if you go, I think it's either the Global Consciousness Project or Global Coherence Initiative. I can't remember which one it is, but if you Google Global Consciousness and Roger Nelson, you'll find it. And they have on there real time. You have to click through. It's kind of hard to find in this website because it's got so much information. But they have a real-time display and it makes you can see the random event generators on there, and you can see it'll make a little ding when there's coherence. Again, this relates to Roland McCrady's work at HeartMath. When there is coherence in energy that's in proximity to that particular random event generator, it prints out ones and zeros. That's all it does all day, is spew out ones and zeros on pieces of paper. And they don't know what it means when it gets more less random, and starts printing out more ones and zeros or more zeros than one. But what they have found out, that is within 3 days there will be some major event in proximity to that random event generator.
Amazing.
Such as the tsunami that came, or the 9/11, or they even did an experiment where they went to the World Series, I believe it was, one year, and they did a global peace prayer, and crime dropped in that area, something like, and I don't remember this exact number, but 25% during the time that they did this experiment.
And
so,
that's
sorry?
what is fascinating, that impact is measurable, for one. That's what's, I think, wonderful. That's this new science, this new awareness that we're being able to document and get measurable results from, that takes us to the next level, I think, of thinking.
It's an absolute fact. What people don't understand is, one of my 20 questions that I repeatedly ask each one of these individuals was, is there matter on the quantum level? And people think, well, what the heck does that have to do with anything? What it means that if you were to go down, if you had a really strong microscope and you looked at a blade of grass or a cell or a scale of a fish or whatever it is that you're looking at, when you get down to a point called the irreducible unit where that cell or that particle can't be split anymore, you won't find anything but energy. So really, everything that is only that energy, and we are all one thing. So when we make judgments about other people, it affects the entire world. I saw a posting on my Facebook wall just today, and I looked at it, and I couldn't believe that it was being said. Somebody posted a thing that had a teddy bear on it, and they said, to all the girls that post inappropriate photographs of themselves and then label themselves as a geeky nerd, excuse me, you're really just and it had a bad slang word about some sexual connotation. And I thought, that's a judgment right there, because these girls that do that, these young girls, do that because most of them have been sexually violated in their young years, and they've been conditioned that that's what they're supposed to do, and that's how they show love. That person who posted that thing on my website has never walked in their shoes, but that one post, for every girl that's been sexually abused, and I know some, and they see that post, what does that do to their self-esteem? And I'm sure that person had no idea that she was doing that, and that was not her intention. But she hasn't lived in their shoes. So to make judgments about anybody, you're affecting the entire world, and that matters. Does that make any sense? Wendy, are you there?
Yeah, I was just, I had to cough, clear my throat a minute, sorry. But the thing is, what you're talking about is also from an experiential background. This for you is real, and we're still trying to get people up to speed on being able to see these results and know that our words have power. Because when we speak with that authentic sense of knowing, not just trying to prove it to somebody else, there's a whole different energy that shifts other people in your environment. And when you come to it, it's basically comparing it to somebody who's been a practitioner of Buddhism for 20, 30 years, as opposed to a student who just walked in the door and says, "Hi, I've done it for 5 minutes. Let me help you." There's a whole different energy when we do this and do it with authenticity, integrity, and we believe in it. It does make a difference.
I guess one of the major things that I came away with from interviewing these people is when they say, and every one of them says this, thought creates. And some of these people, like Henry Stapp, People say that he's going to be nominated for a Nobel Prize in Physics one day. So, I mean, these are like the best scientists in the world that I could find, people with credentials. So you got to listen to them. But when you place an intention, people say, whoa, well, how come they can do it and I can't do it? It's because you have to get into that altered space. You have to clear your mind with no thought. And people go, well, what button do you push to do that? There are techniques that you can do that. But the bottom line is you can manipulate your reality. And every bit of it is about perspective, how you view the world. You change your perspective and learn how to do that every day. And again, people say, well, what button do I push to do that? Read this book. This book will give you everything, and along with my agape book, which is a very simple book. But with this book, it'll prove to you everything that we're telling you. You just got to take the time. It's like taking a college class. To whatever degree you study in that college class, that's the same degree that you're going to learn something. So to every degree that you set aside time in your life every day, and not just think about it, because that doesn't count. You have to feel it. And there again we go back to heart maths research work. You got to feel it, because there's voltage behind that feeling. We're electromagnetic beings, and when you feel something, voltage goes through your autonomic nervous system and goes to your brain, and atoms start oscillating, and energy starts being transmitted out to the world and received back into who you are, like a revolving door. So that's why what goes around comes around. Mm-hmm. But you have to feel it and visualize it. When you do that on a consistent basis, one day is not going to get you anywhere. But when you make this your life, you walk your talk. I saw something on my Facebook yesterday. It said, you don't be kind to other people because they're kind to you. You be kind to other people because you're kind.
Right.
You walk your talk, you will be amazed at the changes that come into your life. And I'd like to talk to people who have anger management problems specifically, who maybe have some biochemical imbalance and they have these terrific anger management problems. You can change that if you ground yourself. Your life will change. The lives of the people around you will change. I mean, I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what the science, the research science and evidence of the best and most respected scientists in the world have proven. For example, Bill Tiller is one of the chapters in my book, and Bill did some experiments with fruit fly larvae. And he did some experiments with water. We'll use water because everybody gets water.
Yeah.
He placed an intention, and I'll tell you who did it. It was Bill and his wife and Norm Shealy and his wife. They got into a meditative state, and they focused on this water and said, okay, we want the pH in this water to increase by 1 point. That's a big deal because your body's supposed to be around 7.4. If you don't have that, then you get sick. You get acidosis, you get cancer, you get diabetes, you get a lot of things. Well, then you go too high and get too alkaline, you also have problems. So that's people go, well, that's just 1 point. Well, if you read on pH and what it means to your body, you'll realize that's a really big deal. So then they got a water company to donate hundreds and hundreds of bottles of water so that people couldn't say that this water was tainted. And they actually, the way they imprinted this intention was into what Bill calls an intention device, an individual electronic device or intention, something, I forget, it's an IED is what he calls it. And then he shipped them all over the world to different respected laboratories. Within 3 days, and then when the little box gets there, they plug it in. Within 3 days, the water in the bottles raised pH by 1 point. And these are bottles that's never been opened, never been exposed to anything. They went straight from the water manufacturing company straight to the labs. That's an amazing thing. Then he said, okay, I want to try again. I want the water in these same bottles to decrease 1 point. So they set an intention in this little machine and sent one to each of the labs and plugged it in. Within 3 days, that seems to be the magic time, 3 days, the water decreased 1 point. That's a big deal. Then he did another experiment where he had fruit fly larvae, all from the same fly. And he split them up, and one of them he placed an intention that said, I want this group, this control group A, to accelerate the growth rate of these fruit fly larvae by 25%. I want this control group B, or non-control group, to just accelerate at their normal rate. And he sent these around the world, too. So then he plugged in his little device, and sure enough, the control group that had the intention that they grow faster by 25% grew faster, reached adulthood 25% faster. What does that tell you about your life? But it doesn't work for the average state of mind where you're walking around thinking, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about this? I got this deadline. I got this kid. Then my kid's driving me crazy. I got to cook dinner. I got to do lunch. That doesn't work. You go sit outside somewhere, wherever your sacred space is, or quiet space if you don't have a sacred space, and breathe in your nose, out your mouth for 15 minutes, and hold no thought in your mind, or either just let the thoughts pass by. Once you lock in onto a thought, it's like going down the rabbit hole, and then you follow through everything on that thought that you could possibly think of. You just clear space so that you have no thought. And then you visualize and feel those things that you want to happen in your life. Because if you just want them, then you get just that, the desire of want for those things. But if you want to make it happen, you feel it. You cause the conductivity to run through your autonomic nervous system to your mind, and it will happen.
I want to compare it to, there's a guy who wrote a book, Joseph Murphy. He's been around for a long time, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And what he was talking about in terms of affirmations, at that point, they didn't call him that, but that thing of being attractive to something. And he was talking about a salesman who he had to help him. And he said, the guy was going, well, I think I am wealthy. I am wealthy. But every time he thinks that particular statement, he says, I know I'm lying to myself because I'm not wealthy, but I do. I think I am wealthy. All right. He discounts it every time he thinks it or because he feels exactly the opposite. So what he did was cancel it out. Wealthy, and let himself feel the word wealthy, and it fixed it because he was no longer arguing with himself about that state. So even though we think we're doing the right thing, and this goes to that Law of Attraction movie, the film that everybody thinks, oh, well, it doesn't work because I didn't get it to do it. No, you didn't fix yourself. You didn't fix yourself. It works. It's just you have to go in and do a lot more homework to get yourself in that state of receptivity to be able to actually intentionally create what your goal is. You have to be able to do that. Did that guy get wealthy? Yes, he said it made a tremendous difference because that took that hurdle, that barrier in his own thinking. He didn't realize that he was sabotaging himself. And
but that's another thing here. When you're trying to create, it just brought up another thought. When you're trying to create, not talking to you, talking to the audience.
Yeah.
It's perspective. What do you define as wealthy? Because consciousness may or may not define wealthy as you define wealthy. Just like every one of these scientists that I interviewed, which is another big problem. Don't let me forget to go there. You know, wealthy can be having everything that you need when you need it, or wealthy can be having abundant love and people that love you, or it can be millions of dollars in the bank. So, what is that thing to you? Don't assume that consciousness defines it the way you do. So don't even use the words. You feel the feeling of what it is you want to have. You know, visualize, if it's money you want, visualize the dollars in the bank. And then that brings up another topic. You know, every one of these scientists agree that we do not have complete free will. You know, what we do have is complete free will as to how we're going to respond to a situation. If we had complete free will, I'm going to tell you something. I have lived a life that has been a very traumatic life to me. Lots because I'm a very passionate person. So whatever I do, man, I do it on the edge. So because of things called polarities, to whatever extreme you feel this, and it's like a swing. You swing up in the air where you're guaranteed to swing back the opposite way.
Yeah.
So it's more about walking in the middle. So that's your free will. How are you going to react here? Because there's other things to factor in. Since science has proven beyond a doubt that we live in a holographic environment and that life is an illusion, then that means that there are also bigger reasons that you're here that's beyond you, that's from God or Source or, the irreducible, whatever you want to call that most highest power. There are lessons to learn, and sometimes those lessons that you learn may not include that thing which you want the most. The lesson may be there for you to get over wanting that thing you want the most.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break. Yes, okay. Yes. And you did it so succinctly. Hold on a second. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want you to mention, because I'm going to go down the list of the people that you've included and give us a teeny tiny bio of why their stuff is important and who they are. Can we do that? And let's kick off that next segment, because that's important. And then I want to focus on Thomas Campbell.
I love Tom.
Okay, good. So we're going to take a quick break and come back more talking with Eva Herr on her newest book. If you want to find out more information about the Princeton Project, I did put a post on that on Facebook too, the Noosphere, I believe, or the Global Consciousness Project. Yeah, if you just Google Global Consciousness Princeton, you'll pick it up. But it's just, all these things are fascinating, and it's nice to have the names here to plug in with the information and content. Back with more Conscious Living on Empower Radio. I'm Wendy Garrett. Hi there, this is Conscious Living. I'm Wendy Garrett on Empower Radio. My guest today, Eva Herr, and we're talking about her newest book, Consciousness. Agape of the Soul was the first one, and I've interviewed Eva a couple times before about our own beliefs about consciousness, and she had a life shift that we focused on before, too, that helped her look a different direction. She talks about being, totally black and white, and then something else shifted to get her interested in pursuing life in an entirely new way. Would you agree with that, Eva?
Yes, and I have to tell you something. Your ads are great. Not only did they make me smile when I heard them, but they're actually worthy of hearing. Good job.
Thank you. They'll appreciate that. That's, I know in the middle of the commercial, sometimes when you're talking about the lost cat magnet, you're...
All of them were good, and I just loved them. They were great. So anyway. Well,
the thing is, though, with this, that there are a lot of people who are experiencing, I think, what you and I have gone through is a radical shift, a transformative event that says we need to look beyond what we are. And when I pulled up the website for that we were talking about earlier, the Global Consciousness Project, and they do put a disclaimer on it saying this isn't done through Princeton. It's directed by Roger Nelson from his home office. It's not a project of the university. But it's a huge thing here that's associated with them. And so when you do your, background, that's where it came about. And that's what they're known for, is the Pear Laboratory there. Is that right? Makes sense.
But they're all connected. I mean, Roger and Bob John and Brenda Dunn and the people also at Syleron, PSYLERON, they make an individual random event generator that comes in a light that is phenomenal to lay and look at. And instead of printing out ones and zeros, it literally rotates through the electromagnetic spectrum. And if it rotates, it means that you're not cohesive. It somehow, and they don't know how yet, we've had private conversations about this, it knows how to tune into you. But when it becomes non-random and sticks on one color, and it really is beautiful. Sometimes I just lay in my living room at night and look at it. It's like truly the colors of the rainbow. And when it gets stuck on one color, then you know that your energy field is cohesive, and it's now the time for you to start doing your visualizations or your meditation or whatever, because you are in that altered state. So it's a very good tool. And it's a very good party thing. You get a lot of people coming over, and you all try to make it go to one color. So when everybody says, okay, let's make it go to red, and it goes to red, you go, wow, it really works. Intention really works. So it's a great tool, and that's at Salaron.
This is, when you get on here, when you get on the site, it's worth checking out because you can see all these little dots and all this thing happening. But I love the quote, the consciousness of mankind is one and not truly divisible. Each person has a responsibility to achieve this and nothing else. There is no other way out. That is absolutely what has to be done, and nothing else can work. David Bohm.
That's right.
So when you're talking about the math,
David Bohm is, he's the man, one of the men.
Yeah. So, coming from that, you really get a clue that there is something that we are just on the verge of grasping that's going to take us, far beyond what we're doing right now. But I wanted to go back to the sciences that you've included here, the science behind this book and the people that you have. It's 10 chapters of research with people who have very, very impeccable credentials. We started out with the folks from with the Princeton, Robert John and Brenda Dunn. Chapter 2, Christian de Quincy. And that one I'm not familiar with.
Well, he is a philosophist, and he teaches consciousness at John F. Kennedy University, and I can't remember all of his bio, but Christian was the senior editor for Noetic Sciences at Ions for their magazine. And he studied philosophy all of his life, and I wanted somebody in there that wasn't like a hardcore rocket scientist or engineer that did numbers. I wanted people to get a picture that no matter what area of study, advanced studies that I was talking to, I got the same answers.
Okay.
And so Christian is a philosophist, but he teaches, and he's got a PhD in philosophy. He teaches many classes, does many webinars. I would suggest that you go to his site and take a look, christiandequincy.com, I believe it is. In fact, after we did our interview, he was honestly kind of stunned by it, and he wrote a complete article just on our interview. And you can find that article on his site, or you can go to evaherr.com and then click on my blog tab. Once you click on the blog tab, and on the right-hand side in little letters it says archive, and you can find that in there. And he really brought about some very good questions for his students. So that's who Christian is. He just was with, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which was started by Edgar Mitchell, and was their senior editor of their magazine.
Now, the other three I was familiar with Dean Radin, Amit Goswami, and William Tiller. Those folks I was familiar with, but real quickly for our listeners, Dean Radin.
Dean is the senior research scientist at Noetic Sciences. He's the one that's done most of the work out there on consciousness and connectivity, putting two people in different rooms and letting them see the same things and see if they were connected. He was on What the Bleep. He was on Down the Rabbit Hole. He wrote a fabulous book. He's written several books, but a really wonderful book called Entangled Minds that talks about, he's also an engineer. He's a concert violinist. He's an engineer. I think he has a degree in psychology. He's just an amazing man, and he is the senior researcher at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, again, who was started by Edgar Mitchell when he came back from the moon, to study consciousness.
Okay, yeah, I've got a couple of his books. I'm looking around to see they aren't in this room. My house is full of books, so it's kind of hard to...
I can relate.
Right, yeah. Okay, and then Amit Goswami. He's fascinating.
Oh, he's an amazing man. He is a theoretical physicist, also a PhD. Everybody that I made sure I got PhD level so people couldn't, and who had tenure. So people... if they weren't any good, they wouldn't be hanging around. They would have been kicked out for a while back. Mm-hmm. So he's a theoretical physicist who originally started out as not believing in God. He's also Indian, but he didn't believe in God because he was so science-based. But then something happened, and he had an epiphany, and he suddenly got it. And he's written a numerous amount of books, Creative Evolution, God is Not Dead, the Quantum Doctor. I can't even remember them all. last one? Conscious Creation, I think, is another one. I mean, just a slew. I mean, he's recently done a movie called The Quantum Activist. If you have not seen this movie, it is worth seeing. You can see it on Netflix. I think you can watch it on his website, and I can't remember what that is, but if you Google Amit Goswami and Quantum Activist, you'll find it on there. Mm-hmm. And he, I mean, he's out there. I don't know what to tell you, except that he supports, through his research and through his own personal experiences, we are indeed one. There is no separation. There is no matter. I can't stress the importance of no matter on the quantum level, because that means that all of this that we see when we look out our window or look across our room is not even real. You think that it's real because the atoms are vibrating so slowly that they appear to be mass, but there's really no such thing. So to really grasp that helps you to understand that what you do to everyone else, you're really doing it to you.
I had a wonderful experience when I was first getting into this new way of being. Basically, in 1997, I had gone to basically his background is Native American. He practices as a shaman, and I had been guided with the guides that I work with to go visit him. And during that time, there was a session, and a lot of times what has happened is the guidance that I have received, they also work through a third party or a second party, and they work through him. And in the moment that it happened, I was totally blown out of my physical body and able to see from, it's hard to gauge space, but I would say 15 or 20 feet above me, all I could see was this little colorful being below me and nothing else. Everything else was completely black. And that was how I integrated the experience, that I was basically in a hologram. And all that I am doing is projecting all of my stuff, however I've integrated from this life, past life, future, from whatever time it happens to be, upon this outer world that I see. That was in 97. There have been some amazing things beyond that. That was just like the tip of the iceberg, but it was preparing me for the life path that I lead now, to know that we really are just neophytes when it comes to trying to integrate and conceptualize our way of being and our way of thinking, our way of living, and trying to do something that you have taken on this project, such as trying to define and give some kind of tangible explanation, definition to consciousness. That you bit off a chunk.
Well, I had help,
Yeah.
I had help from Roy Scruggs, and I had help from all of these people that did me a chapter. I couldn't have done it without them. Yeah, really I
like the people that you came up with. William Tiller is next. You mentioned him earlier in our interview.
Well, you can find Bill at tiller.org, and it's TILLER.org. Bill was the chairman of the physics engineering department at Stanford. And when he started doing this, first of all, he was not a rocket scientist. He did like electronics and things like that, hard physical science. And he had to do that for many years before he could get his tenure and obviously become chairman of the department. But when he got there, then he really decided to pursue his passion, because Bill, too, had an epiphany in his life and got to see the big picture. And he said, look, I got to do something about this. And his peers all thought he was a heretic. Mm-hmm. But he's documented things in hundreds of white papers and I think 3 or 4 different books, which you can find on his website. He is leaving a trail of everything he knows for the people that come after him so that they can pick up the research where he left off.
Which is wonderful.
And he's the one that did the experiments I told you about before with water and the fruit fly larvae. I mean, he's done many more than that. That's just a couple of examples. He was also in What the Bleep. And he will tell you right straight off the bat, he and Amit both, the science in that movie, What the Bleep, is not right. So that movie makes you, and The Secret, it makes you come away thinking that you can think a thought and it's going to happen, and that's not the way it works. So he wants people to understand that you really must be in an altered state of mind. And when I say that, I mean no thought, like in a meditative state, low theta or high delta. And you really must feel what it is, like an Etch-a-Sketch. Have you ever had an Etch-a-Sketch and it's brand new and it has nothing on it, and then you spin the little wheels and you draw things and you make a picture, and then you shake it, but that picture never goes away. So the way you do that with your mind, if you want to change things in your own life, is you feel it, and then it etches it in. But you got to do it on a repeated basis. Otherwise, it's not etched in hard enough to overcome the mind chatter.
Well, it just becomes a way of being, and the more you experience that way, then everything in your life gradually alters, and before long, you become altered. It's just,
that's right.
You're saying it. It's the way it works. It really is. It's true.
You must walk your talk and be that thing that you truly want to be. You can't just think about it. You must be that thing.
Okay, we've got more chapters here. Henry Stapp.
Well, Henry's at Berkeley Laboratories, and he's a really hardcore scientist. People say that Henry will probably be nominated for a Nobel Prize in physics because of his work in consciousness and the books that he's written. Henry's a little bit off the charts. He's probably not somebody you're going to hear about so much because he hides off in a laboratory, and that's where he is. He's not really a social media kind of person. Mm-hmm. But he's one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met. And he's worked. And all of these people, by the way, studied under the greats, Feynman, Bohr. I mean, Henry studied under a Nobel laureate. So these are people that have earned where they are, and you have to take them serious. If you believe that 2 plus 2 equals 4, then you have to take these people serious.
Irvin Laszlo. That's
Irvin
the next
Laszlo
one.
has been nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. He was a child prodigy on the piano. He started the Club of Budapest, which is a club of people that came together in Budapest, Hungary, where he's from, to change the world. And it's got some of the most amazing and brilliant scholars in the entire world for decades that are members of this group. And they have gotten together as scientists and actually written, the United Nations and presidents and of countries and trying to change the world. Irvin is a, what do you call it? I can't remember what you call the title, a systems analyst that analyzes human systems and engineering systems.
Okay.
He's a brilliant man, and he's really out there in the world to make a difference, obviously, or he wouldn't have been nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes.
Okay, now we have to wrap up because we've got 10 minutes left, and I wanted to get to Thomas Campbell. So I hate to discount these folks, but Roland McCarty, how do you pronounce?
I can't let you forget about Elizabeth Rauscher, though.
Oh, no, we're going through the next one. Roland first.
Okay, Roland's at HeartMath Research Institute. He's the director there. Yes. All I can say is he's the one that's done all the work on global coherence and heart coherence and how to change your life through his program M-Wave that you can get at home for a couple $100 and use on your computer. So go to heartmath.org or heartmathresearchinstitute.org, and you'll find everything you need to know there.
And I think you can get an abbreviated version of that, too, if you just want to try it out. Because a friend had forwarded that to me a few years back.
I don't know about that.
Okay, fine. Okay, and Elizabeth,
she is one of the most respected female nuclear physicists in the world. She's written multiple hundreds of papers, and she's also enlightened. She's writing a book right now on consciousness and physics, but she also did something that people don't know about. She and a man named George Weissman, another physicist, back in the 70s, they were both out at Berkeley, started a group called the Fundamental Physics Club. And physics is spelled with an F, F-Y-S-I-K-S, Fundamental Physics Group, I think is what it is. And Fred Alan Wolf, Niels Bohr, all of the greats were there. It was the foundation of consciousness and quantum mechanics. It was the very start of what started this movie and there's this movement. And there's a great book out about right now called How the Hippies Saved Physics by a guy named Dave Kaiser at MIT. It's a delightful book to read. He's a physics historian at MIT, so it's just the story of what happened in physics and how we came to where we are today with these people.
Wow.
So
okay,
check
so
out
that's
that
a must
book.
read. That's a must read. Now we've got Thomas Campbell.
He's an amazing man. Tom was one of the original scientists. I think there were two of them, maybe three, but I think there were two, who helped found the Monroe Institute with Bob Monroe. He's also a physicist. He's not a PhD, but he does work with NASA and a lot of people on a contract basis. And he has a fabulous new book. In other words, he's a hardcore scientist. But he has a fabulous new book called My Big Toe. In other words, my big theory. Of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that literally laid in the box in the room with another scientist, and Bob would stand outside, and those two physicists actually somehow managed to have an out-of-body experience and meet at the same place in time and space. And this is documented. And so, but he's also come up with his theory of how everything works, and it's a really amazing book worth taking the time to read, the 800 pages.
Okay, I'll tell you what, all of these folks are worth investigating more, but if you are just now hearing this information for the first time, this gives you a wonderful overview of how incredible they are. And Eva has done her homework. You have hundreds of interviews behind you as you've been doing your own show. Once you got interested in this, you've got some wonderful names to support you and to give you credence. What I wanted to say about this book, it goes back to Elizabeth at the end of her chapter when she, you sum it up well, because she says, I just leave the questions open in terms of the ET. I don't discount what others say. And her philosophy is to be non-judgmental. If you hear something you don't agree with or don't know, just shelve it, see what happens, the evidence that supports it, what evidence discredits it. Listen to what people say. Don't believe everything, because you have to find out what that means with your own living being and conscious state. I love that philosophy. I really try to mirror that with most of my stuff, because this ET thing is the thing that's now getting all sorts of information, and she addresses that very gracefully. So now that we've concluded the names, do you have any thought on that one? Because you throw it in the book.
Because I don't know. I had an amazing experience one day. How many minutes do we have?
5.
Okay. I want to tell you this, something short. But first I want to say to your listeners, please, this is not my book, even though I wrote it. This is a book that I hope will help change the world and contribute to humanity. Please, please share it with your friends. Send it to your email list. Share it on your Facebook. Please help me take this book viral. This book, if read, because the people out there that don't believe are the ones that need to be conditioned by science, this can help us take the quantum leap. Now, back to your question. I had something really weird happen to me one night. I moved up in the Appalachian Mountains down a dirt road in the middle of the woods. And my daughter and I we don't have TV up here. We don't have radios up here. I have my computer, and that's about it. We were in the kitchen one night about 11 o'clock, and she said, I think I'm hungry. And I said, okay, I'll get a cup of coffee. And we went into my little pantry, and I was reaching over her, getting the coffee, and she was reaching, and we started bumping into each other, and we started guffawing, literally, laughing. And I buy things like lentils and brown rice and things in 50-pound bags. And during our guffawing, and I know this sounds crazy, but this female digitalized voice spoke from my bag of lentils. It was only about 3 seconds, and all I heard was the word please, but both of us stopped dead in our tracks and looked at each other and said, did you hear that? So when I was reading Dave Kaiser's book, How the Hippies Save Physics, I read a chapter, and the entire book's basically about Elizabeth and George Weissman and this group they started. I read a chapter in one of his chapters in there about how one of the members of their group had this exact same thing happen. And then I read about where Uri Geller had this same thing happen, except it called him on the phone. I don't know what the heck it was, but it kind of freaked me out. And so I asked Elizabeth about that question. What was that? And that was her answer.
You want me to give you a ditto?
Yeah.
3 a.m., the middle of the night. I had this telepathic communication that, we don't want to frighten you. We don't want to scare you. And you still have to deal with fear. 3 a.m., I wake up and I hear this. That's it. That's automated digital type electronic voice.
Yeah.
Say, I couldn't describe I don't know. I couldn't put a gender to it, but it said Wendy. They couldn't say the D. Wendy. And as soon as I heard that, I went frozen from toe to head.
Too.
And I'm like, holy cow. And I knew right then, oh, crud, I'm afraid. Dang it, that stops it. I knew better and I couldn't stop it. And then the guidance that I get, they just chuckle. See, we told you had to work on fear. Well, crud.
I had another thing happen last week. I'm laying in the bed. I read books at night to prepare for my radio show, and I'm laying in the bed. And my cell phone's on the table beside me charging. It's about 11 o'clock at night. My landline rings, so I get up to answer the landline, and there's nobody there. And I look at the number, and it was my cell phone calling my landline. My cell phone's sitting there, so I went, oh, well. And I just put the phone down, got back in the bed, picked my book up. The landline rang again, and I got up and looked, and there was nobody there. And I looked, and it was my cell phone. 5 times my cell phone called my landline, yet there was nobody there. Nobody was touching my cell phone. Go figure. What the heck? I don't know. But anyway.
Well,
thank you for having me.
E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home.
Phone home. That's right.
Okay, I tell you what, you and I will be in contact again. I love your book. I think that it's definitely a must read, and it gives you the cutting edge science that we are moving into. It's where we're going, not where we've been, but where we're going, and it's a hoot. So, Eva, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. EvaHerr.com is her website. And thank you for listening and being part of the program. I appreciate you. Do your research, do your homework. If it works for you, take it in. If it doesn't, move on. There's plenty of stuff here to explore, one way or the other.
Thanks for having me. And please have your listeners go to my Facebook and like my Facebook fan page. That would help. Thank you.
There's no sign for love, but we like it.
Thank you. Good day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Back for more next week on Conscious Living on Empower Radio. I'm Wendy Garrett. Have a great day.